Okay. My name is Stacey Flowers. I am a self-published author. And I'm going to be publishing books this year, ideally 3. I'm currently in a rewrite of 2, and documenting things helps me. So this is supposed to be my 4th day of writing. But if I'm being perfectly honest, I started this right before the Valentine's Day holiday, and I spent the Valentine's Day holiday valentining. So I did not do any writing, but I am up today, ready to write. Today and every day for the rest of this week, the goal is 2,000 words or more. So ideally at the end of this week, I'll have 14,000 words. I'm trying to get to 55,000 words. And so that's going to take me somewhere around 3 weeks to get to, ideally. And that's if I write the 2,000 words a day. I'll probably end up writing a little bit more because I don't have other big creative things happening in the other parts of my company. I feel like this. No, I don't have big other things happening in the other parts of my company, so I can focus on this. And I'm first focusing on the rewrite for the memoir because I feel like that's a little bit easier to write because that's just about my life. And so it's a little bit easier to write than the book. In my mind, it's a little bit easier. We don't know if in my reality it's going to be a little bit easier. And then there's the rewrite on the self-help book about happiness, which again, I'm going to try to focus these next 6 days. So I guess it'll be 12,000 words at the end of this week. These next 6 days on memoir, and then move to the other. So that's what I'm gonna do now. And I wish I had another camera because I'm actually gonna go to TikTok and go live because for whatever reason that space keeps me in the flow of writing. So I'm gonna go live and then I'll come back and update you all. It takes me in an hour average. When I was on TikTok live, it took me about an hour to write 1,500 words, which is the reason why I think I could get more words out. And also because this is a rewrite, I do have things in my mind that can be put down again, but just in a different way. So I feel like it'll come out easier, but who knows? Who knows? I'll keep you posted. So I will be back to give you an update at 2,000 words and to see if I'm gonna keep writing for the day. I don't know if I shared this in the last video, but I did do an outline, and I did an outline because I've never written a memoir before. And one of the things that happens when I'm writing is I go in and out of a prescriptive voice and a narrative voice. And with a memoir, I need to stay in a narrative voice the whole time. And I don't think that I can pants that. I think I need to plot that because otherwise, like maybe I'm telling you something that happened in my life, but then I'll be like, this happened in my life and therefore you should do this with your life, right? Like I'll get prescriptive, where when you're writing a memoir, you're not supposed to get prescriptive. You're just supposed to say, and this is what happened, and let the story reveal the lesson as opposed to being the person being like a teacher inside of the book. And so I don't think that I would have been able to write 50, 60,000 words in a full narrative voice because it's basically like writing a fiction book. So I just plotted it like it was a fiction book. We'll see how that works out. But it's all plotted, and that feels really, really good because I have a really good idea of all of the scenes, all of like each big moment. Like I have a pretty good idea about that. It's just a matter of writing those down, which I do think will help the writing process as well. So now I'm gonna go live on TikTok. Okay, so I switched to my office to keep writing because I just write better when I'm cozy. And I did write 2,011 words, which is really, really good. I'm still gonna write. I'm just gonna keep writing for the day. Again, I don't have much other work to do, but this is the thing that I wanted to talk about that I'm coming up against as a new writer, and something that is probably how my editor caught this needs to be 2 separate books is because in the narrative voice, I guess there are 4 different maybe styles of narrative voice. Maybe it's not necessarily styles. What is this called? Hold on, let me see. Oh, tenses. There's like 4 different narrative tenses. And what I'm realizing is that the memoir narrative tense is very different than the self-help narrative tense. And I don't know if this is a thing, if it's supposed to be this complicated, but as a new writer, like I'm aware of things. I think also because I've just written so many words in the last little bit, and I think one of the most beneficial things is to write so many words and actually have someone edit it, because you can begin to see the things that you're doing over and over and over again and how to fix it. And obviously I could turn in a draft of the manuscript that's more raw, but I want to improve as a writer because I want to continue to write. So I say that to say there are 4 narrative tenses. So there's past simple, past continuous, past perfect, and past perfect continuous. And this is not something that I thought about until trying to sit down to write this memoir just as a memoir. It would be different if I was writing like a prescriptive memoir, which an example of a prescriptive memoir would be Iyanla Vanzant's Piece from Broken Pieces. Her memoir is prescriptive in that she's writing about a specific time when her whole life fell apart and her life fell into pieces. But it's a prescriptive memoir in that she's saying, what I've learned from my life falling apart is that we have pathologies that get passed down in our families. And this is how you identify a pathology. This is how you eliminate a pathology. This is how blah, 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 blah. So it's prescriptive. So if you take Iyanla Vanzant's Piece from Broken Pieces memoir and you compare that to Shonda Rhimes' Year of Yes, which is just a full narrative memoir, Shonda Rhimes isn't saying, I spent a year saying yes, and this is why you should spend a year saying yes. This is how you should say yes. This is when you should say yes, and this is where you should say yes. Shonda Rhimes is simply telling us about that year that she said yes, and in her telling us that story, we are then inspired to go say yes in our own life. But it's not prescriptive at all. She is full-blown just sharing a story. And ideally, that is what I want my memoir to be, is more like Year of Yes and less like Piece from Broken Pieces. And when I originally wrote the book about happiness, I think it was more like Piece from Broken Pieces, where there was narrative elements in there, plus whatever it was that I was teaching you about happiness, where now having them be separate, I'm very committed to learning how to write in a narrative voice that is all narration and not instructive. And that is a challenge. So I've been writing for about maybe 90 minutes. I can't remember what time I started. I'm going to go with 2 hours. And I have 2,000 words, which doesn't necessarily seem like a lot, but in terms of actually getting better at what I'm doing, that is significant, because if I can write in a narrative voice for 2,000 words and not drop into a prescriptive voice, which I'm used to because that's what I do, right? I coach, I speak, right? That's all like telling people what to do. But in this, it's like, I can't tell people what to do. I mean, I can, but I don't want to tell people what to do because I want it to be a narration. Like that is my hope for this body of work. And I will say having the outline helps tremendously, because what I'm doing right now is just whatever story or scene, I'm trying to write that story or scene in a narrative voice. And the thing that came to mind for why my narrative voice was like getting a little bit messed up was this tense thing. And so that's probably what I'm going to focus on for the next couple of hours, is just quickly studying these tenses and then applying that to the rest of the writing that I do today. But I am going to switch, because the memoir is the more challenging one to write. So I am going to switch over to the self-help book about happiness. We're going to title that, instead of the self-help book about happiness, we're just going to title that book How to Be Happy. So I'm going to switch over to my How to Be Happy book. And yeah, so that is writing day 2. I know I'm supposed to go back to back, but this is only my second day. Writing day 2, 2,000 words. I'm very excited about that. I feel really good.